Joining us right now is former Obama economic advisor Austan Goolsbee. Austan, good to see you.
Hey, great to see you again, Maria.
So what's your take on where we are in tax reform? Is it a bad idea for Republicans in Congress to debate this border adjustment tax?
I don't think it's a bad idea to debate that. I think, first, in the interview, that was the least confident about something that I've seen the new president in some time. So he asked him, are we going to get a tax cut? And he said, well, I think so. I would like to. Those are almost declarations that he doesn't want to do it, in my opinion.
Well, to be fair,
things the president wants, he's very confident about them.
Austan, to be fair, we just spoke with Kevin McCarthy, the #2 guy in the House, who, of course, is working on tax reform, along with Paul Ryan and Kevin Brady. And here's what he told us. He basically said he's got a 200-day plan in place, and that they're on track to deliver a tax reform package later in the year, and it will likely be retroactive to January 2017. It's basically what he just told us.
Okay. Now, so I think what you raised there is what's become the key issue. Republicans in Congress want a certain direction on taxes, and what we have to see is, does President Trump agree with them? You know, President Trump tweeted out some kind of negative things about this border adjustment tax, which confused people, I think, because they thought it was his plan. They thought it was the embodiment of his argument that if people move jobs overseas and try to ship the products back into the U.S., they'll have to pay a tax. I am afraid that what's going to happen, Maria, is that we're going to get into a discussion about tax reform. And as you know, tax reform is really hard to do. And so that's going to delay this thing for months. And that in the end, I think they're just going to cut the rates and leave the system how it is.
But are you, Austan, wouldn't you agree, given how slow the economy has been growing, that we need some sort of juice that doesn't involve the Federal Reserve, and that would be giving people more of their money back?
Well, it depends who the people is. The evidence is pretty strong that if you cut high-income people's taxes, that's not stimulative.
Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary...
I think you better be a little careful.
Steve Mnuchin, though, has said that wealthier Americans won't get a net tax cut, that won't be where a lot of the money goes. He said that early on.
Okay, that's what Steve Mnuchin said, and yet if you look at the bills in Congress, we're talking about $1 to $2 trillion of corporate tax cuts, and the stock tends to be owned by high-income people. So I don't totally know how to square the circle. You might be right, and that would be an interesting development.
Here's what Kevin McCarthy just told us a few minutes ago. Listen to this.
We have a 200-day plan here, and there's a structure and a method to this. We started with regulation reform, and you've watched that. That's been a two-part plan. Changing the structure of how you do regulations with the REINS Act. Now you're watching Congressional Review Act. Those are a number of bills that you could pass just with a simple majority in the House and the Senate. We did 5 of those last week, another 3 this week. And then we're moving on to repealing and replacing Obamacare. That's moving this month and next month.
They've got a clear agenda, Austan.
It does sound like they have a clear agenda. The newsworthy thing in that clip, though, is they moved tax reform and tax cutting out of the #1 slot down into the #3 slot. So if what he was just announcing was we're not going to cut taxes until we've repealed and replaced Obamacare, I don't know if corporate America knows that, because they just got the thing moved into some very far in the future date.
Austan, I guess that depends on your interpretation. I thought you heard a pretty clear plan for 200 days, and that, as you well know, is leading up to the August recess. So as long as it gets done in that window of time, I think it doesn't matter how you enumerate it necessarily.